Hi, this is Egg Harbor Library, and we're learning to watercolor today. And we needed some help because, hey, I am not a watercolor artist. And I looked at it and I have heard that watercolor art is the hardest of all the painting. And we'll get Kari Anderson's opinion on that in a few minutes. But Kari Anderson is here with us today. She's a Door County artist and well known in our county. And she has some lovely things to show today, and she's going to talk about watercolors, and then we're going to ask her to give us a little demo to help us with this project that I will show you in a minute. So, hello, Kari Anderson.
Thank you for inviting me. My address is actually Egg Harbor, but I really live in Jacksonport, which doesn't have a post office or a library.
So you could have us.
So,
yeah.
glad to come.
Yeah, so could you tell us how you started watercolor? Have you always done this, or is this something new for you? Or I mean, well, it's not new for you, but
I was very fortunate to have a high school art teacher who was an amazing watercolorist, and he was a big influence to me. I grew up in the Madison area, even though I was born in Iowa. I grew up in the Madison area, and my mother is a very creative person, Carol Anderson, and she always let us kids make huge projects and create huge messes, and I'm lucky that I was allowed to do that. But I just fell in love with watercolor at about age 16, and now I'm halfway to, I'm in my 60s, so I've been at it for a long time. And
you want to get back? You
so I fell in love with watercolor when I was about 16.
Okay.
And then my degrees in commercial art from the tech school in Madison,
Okay.
where I learned a lot of things about printing and advertising and how to get things put into production. And I am lucky to have that under my belt.
Yeah, because you have cards.
I have a lot of cards. I probably have 30 at least designs in cards. And one of my hot spots for cards is right here in Egg Harbor at the grocery store.
Okay, at Main Street Market.
Yep.
Yes.
So they've got a nice display of my cards, and it's important for me to have my artwork available in a price range that's available to all people.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, so many people would like to have some art that's nice, and they can't afford it, myself included.
Yeah, I know art is expensive.
But
yeah,
my watercolors are kind of available from note cards all the way to larger originals, and I like having that range.
and I'm going to be showing you her website later, but on the website it's really nice. It shows the cards, it shows original pieces, and it has all of Kari's contact information on there. So I'm going to let Kari show you some of her pieces now, and
This will be fun to show and tell. I brought in a lot of raw paintings that are not matted or framed yet. The paper that I use is Arches watercolor paper, and this is what it is right here. If you want to close up on that. If you want to get into watercolor, having some decent paper is really a helpful thing. If you are fighting your paper, it's hard enough to do it without fighting your paper. So,
And where do you pick that up, usually?
Here in Door County, the Artist Guild sells watercolor paper, and it's available online too.
Okay.
so I'm going to be giving on the Creative Bug. They recommend Arches too. Have you heard of Creative Bug?
No.
It's,
I know.
so the library owns a program that has art classes,
Mhm.
It's called Creative Bug, which is the worst name, I think. But they talk about watercolors, and they talk about the supply list, and they say arches. So I'll
So,
make sure
It's
that,
not just me.
no, I'll make sure. And then I think they said water something stone or something, I don't know, for the paints. They have a recommended products to buy.
Okay.
So Arches is one that it sounds familiar, and
Yep.
yes, it was on their list. Okay, so
So, let me just flip you through some of these. This is wet on wet treatment, where you wet the paper first. I usually paint from the back towards myself, so from far away to closer and closer. And this is a little bit of mixed media, where I took a rubber stamp in watercolor and did these little leaves as kind of a impressionistic texture. Toothbrush splattering right in here. We're talking about the seed catalog that you're starting, and I like to paint with the seasons, where, you know, in the summer I like to paint flowers. This is very wet on wet. These brilliant colors are from a paint called QOR paint. Those three letters, QOR.
QOR.
And those are tube watercolor, which I would highly recommend. They're really bright colors and fun colors.
So paper and colors are important.
Yeah, they are.
How about brushes?
I like to use synthetic brushes. They're a lot more economical. I have about 20 or 30 brushes, but to tell you the truth, I have like 3 favorites, and I have a 1-inch wide and a rigger, which is like a liner,
Okay.
and then I have like a round number 8 or number 10. And this little texture in here is salt that's sprinkled into the wet wash, and so is this. This is all wet on wet. This line was kept by taking a masking tape and laying it across to hold that straight line. This is a lot of wet into wet. This one I like a lot.
This looks like on your cards.
That one's actually on the site.
Yeah.
This is called Big Barn, Little Barn. And I have a lady who's looking at this, and she wants me to add a gnome to it, which I'm considering. I'm not quite sure yet.
I know
She's-
everyone's been doing these gnomes out of furs for decorations.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have them
Mhm.
at the Ridges.
I've seen those too.
Yeah,
They're sweet.
yeah.
This is an interesting one. This is also on the website. This is sewn with a sewing machine. And this is embossed with the Cuttlebug embossing tool.
Ooh, we have the big shot.
It's like the Big
Yeah.
Shot. And here's the arches. So, and this is kind of collaged in with some very fine Japanese paper, and then you can see the embossing here. So the closer that you look at it, the more there is going on. And if somebody framed this, I would probably recommend showing these edges. I used to hate, I used to be leery of showing my art before it was matted or framed. But I'm not anymore, because so many people want very specific things in their matting and framing, that no matter what my perfect idea is, they don't want it. It's very frustrating. So it's just a lot easier to not put the investment into matting and framing and just show things as raw. And
Well, and I
mean,
think that watercolor is so raw. You know, I feel like it's a very raw. I don't know.
It is. I mean, it can be.
Mhm.
This one I'm not too sure about. Okay, so when I'm not too sure about them, you're gonna love this in a minute. I always have a whole bunch. It's trial and error, to tell you the truth. Sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're not. Or sometimes you're just not done with them right away and you have to go back.
Because it has to dry.
It has to dry. And you know, I used to get so mad when I had the kids and I couldn't finish. I'd be right in the middle of something and the phone would ring But guess what? That's life. And I learned how to paint more in steps. And it was good because then it would dry in between. And these I actually did on location. We were camping, I think. It's fun to paint outside, although the mosquitoes get you and
Mhm.
it doesn't, it's not easy sometimes. The dog tips over your water and et cetera, et cetera.
So you don't do plein air then? The difference, I know they do plein air and Fish Creek.
Yeah.
With the,
You know, I do it a little bit, but I don't like the competition aspect of it.
yeah. How'd you make that circle? Did you have like a quarter on top?
I do cheat a little and take a template and draw the perfect circle.
Yeah.
And then I just you can either use a resist and mask that out so you can paint over, or you can keep that dry and everything else wet and carefully do it. And if it stays round, you're lucky. But you know, a moon is only full one day out of a month.
That's right.
And there could be clouds going in front of it, or
Yeah.
all kinds of things. This is heavier paper. This is 300-pound paper.
Mhm.
And it's different. It's got a tougher surface. You have to really kind of work it harder. But it's fun to work with. It's more expensive, so it's always kind of a splurge. Okay, so these will be fun to look at. I want to go back to this one just for a minute. This is the Jorn Sugarbush farm.
Oh, okay.
Not too far from here, out on T. The maple syrup part is over here, but the home farm is here. And I was always kind of torn, like, do I like the whole thing or do I maybe just like that much? So I'm always.
I don't know. I like the
I
fence.
like it all.
So I signed it down here. Anyway, I always feel like, well, if the whole painting doesn't work, maybe just part of it works. Which leads me to this. These are paintings that I struggled with for one reason or another. Or they're older and I get into this little chop mode of gotta do something with them. So they just turned into all these little like abstract things. And where they're going next, I do not know. But that's part of the fun of it for me. And you know, maybe this needs more, or a next step, or maybe it needs a punch
From your big shot.
from your big shot, yeah, or a rubber stamp, or who knows what. But my only rule on this is it has to fit into my standard envelope. So it could eventually be sold, so I could buy more paper. So that's kind of how even if you have paintings that don't really go the way you wish they would go,
Mm-hmm.
which does happen a lot, even to me. Should I show her some of my?
Sure. Okay, I've started. All right, you want to show some of the cards you can probably get at Main Street?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. These are on my website and they're also at Main Street. But there are this one is called Close to Me. They're poppies, and this Close to Me is the seeds came from my Grandma
Oh.
Dorothy, and my husband thinks they're weeds, but they self-seed, and I have these red poppies that pop up all the time. This one is called Deep Purple. Itis. When I was in high school, I loved that band, Deep Purple. Close to the Wind, this is very Egg Harbor.
Yeah.
And this one has a Robert Frost poem on it, Nothing Gold Can Stay. I'll read it real quick, it's not
Sure.
very long. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down today, nothing gold can stay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so I love Robert Frost poetry, and I just thought that fit. And then these are a present for you, Janine.
Oh.
These are I made these cards of people, and
Mhm.
they printed out in this like accordion shape,
Yeah.
and it was too weird. People didn't buy them. So I cut them into these little pieces, which once again do fit into envelopes. But they all have little. This is when I was going through my people stage
Mhm.
of watercolor. We're making ice now, which that's bundle up, baby. It's cold out there. Bring in some firewood. Most of them don't have faces, which I kind of like. No school day, no school, snow day,
Now it's
so
the
forth
Zoom
and
day.
so on. So,
Yeah.
even if some of my cards are duds, I figure out some way to force recycling onto them.
Well, we had Huga bags we gave out, and in them we had stationery for people.
Yeah.
Because you always need stationery, and it's nice to have a card.
Yeah.
I cards are nice to have.
Yeah.
I've made some homemade ones that I like to, and people seem to like the homemade ones better than,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So, can I show you our project that we need to make?
I'd love to look at it, yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna, so we have the seed catalog, seed library that we are going to be making. And this is a cabinet, and we took off the hardware, and we received some pictures here's some of these pictures to put on the front. So I got this idea that we would get our patrons to help us out by doing some watercolor. So after listening to Kari, and I'm going to also recommend a Creative Bug video to watch, we would love for you to try out watercolors. We would like you to come to the library, and we'll get you set up with some brushes, some watercolors, and some pictures to try out. So, Kari, do you want to come over and
Yes.
give us a little example of how you would do the radishes? So,
I think this would just be a great way to get your feet wet. Watercolor.
and we have lots of different, and again, what was the name of the watercolors that you recommend?
Well, there's lots of paints out there on the market, but the one that I really like is QOR.
QOR. So we've now said that a couple of times.
Yeah. One great thing about watercolor is that you can let it get dried out and get hard, and it'll come right back to life when you re-wet it. I never use white. And
I heard
never,
what,
ever,
yeah.
ever use black.
So I've heard that from other artists, watercolor artists. They never use white and black.
Because the white in watercolor is supposed to be the whiteness of your paper.
Ah.
And the black just makes everything get muddy and dirty. So it's easy enough to get mud without black, so let's just not even go there. Oh, these are always fun to open. Let me think. I might need a pokey thing.
Okay, how about a scissor? Would that work?
Yeah. A sizz.
So we have all kinds of supplies here for you if you want to help us out decorating our seed catalog. We have 2 sheets, one that's a really nice piece of watercolor paper, and the other one is a bit thinner. We were looking for something that would go through our copier, and let's say it was kind of hard.
So I'm just pre-wetting, and then I'll try these colors, which are new to me. So you can go in dry or you can go in wet. I don't know what this is, a different kind of a radish.
I know.
A horseradish, maybe. Those are whitish, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to make that white, then let's do the background and leave that white. So there you're leaving white. That's the whole trick of watercolor. Instead of using white paint, you leave the white. And I mean, I know I'm kind of rushing through this. I don't have these colors laid out. But you could sprinkle some salt in there and get some texture. You could.
I'm going to try that on mine, a little salt.
I could do a little bit of color. If you have red and you want pink, just add more water. That's pretty simple. Let's take a more fun color like fuchsia. Fluorescent peach red.
Ooh.
This is everyone. One of my favorite colors is called opera. Ooh.
Ooh.
These would be fun for all kinds of flowery stuff.
Yeah. And we do have some flowers. You get to choose your project. We have seeds and squash and wildflowers and all kinds of fun.
I don't care if I go outside the lines. In fact, I like it better if it is outside the lines. That's sort of.
I like that too.
I don't like being in the lines.
No. I learned something today. I always get mad at my grandkids because they make huge art messes, but I'm not going to get mad at them anymore. Because you did that.
You know what? They always have to have a mess.
Yeah.
And then I guess my mother's rule was, well, we have to have dinner eventually, so you're going to clean this table off at 5 o'clock or whatever. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, the mess couldn't continue for days and days and days.
I have a children's book artist I know from Milwaukee. Her name is Lois Ehlert.
Yeah.
And her mom gave her a card table. She was from Beaver Dam. And she was allowed to her mess stayed on the card table. It was her card table.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. I
I
tried
get
that with,
really kind of upset when I know that parents won't allow their kid to do a messy project, because it's natural. And
yeah.
I want to show you my hollyhocks, because I just love doing hollyhocks. Let's get some plain paper. Okay, let's do circle, circle, circle. See, I don't even draw here, I just wing it.
And she's just wetting her paper with circles.
Little wet puddles. Now we'll take the other end of the brush and we'll do some drawing with that.
So she's not even using a brush, she's just using that tip.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's really fun. And who cares if it doesn't look like a real flower? That's okay. If you want it to look like a real flower, then you should get a camera,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and these would make fun cards to give to people.
Wouldn't they?
Get well cards and birthday cards. Yeah.
You know, if it touches, it'll fuzz. If it, like there. And if it doesn't touch, it'll stay apart. Hollyhocks always have these little seeds that go up, up. So I mean, I didn't even pencil this in. I guess I've done these a bunch of times, so
Yeah.
I have that under my belt. Here's something that I love to do, this little splattery thing.
Huh.
Just kind of loosens it up.
And she was saying earlier she uses a toothbrush
Yeah.
to make little splattery things too.
My mother said I perfected that at a very young age on the bathroom mirror. With my toothbrush. See, now wouldn't that be fun to just send somebody a
Yeah.
little get well? Get well.
Wonderful. Oh, that's beautiful.
Anyway, you can start with just easy, fun stuff. It doesn't have to be that hard.
And we're sending, when you come here, we're sending you home with the same picture, two of the same. They're just two different kinds of paper, and one is a heavier weight. So
You can get into this for a really pretty low budget, and the more you spend, the nicer the paint is, the better color it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't have to spend a fortune to begin with. Start at the lower end, and if you like it, work your way up.
Yeah, I think our watercolors, I purchased 2 sets, and they're around $20 for the
Yeah.
set, and so I didn't really invest too much, just for you all to give it a try. So
And you can use lots of different things like a Tupperware plate or anything white. Why white? Because your paper's white, so you want this to
Mhm.
be white.
okay,
But,
that's good. You've given us a lot of good advice. Kari Anderson, thank you so much for coming to Egg Harbor's library and showing us watercolors. And I think when we finish our seed library, I'll send a picture so you get to see that. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.